business this evening is the consent agenda, which includes town account warrants, a gift acceptance from Concord Free Public Library Corporation, $25,000 to the Archival Project gift account, one-day special license malt and wine alcoholic beverage license for Saltbuck Farm at 40 Westford Road Cooking School, July 21st and 30th, and August 24th and 25th from 5 to 9 p.m. All alcoholic beverage license for Newbury Court Golf Tournament on August 15th from 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. at Concord Country Club. And extension of hours of Saltbuck's Kitchen, 84 Commonwealth Avenue, August 14th from noon to 3 p.m. with last call at 2:30 p.m.
Move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Okay. Ms. Hodges. That's the town manager's report. Katie's here in lieu of Chris is on call. Please.
Yes. So we have just a few updates. Chris will be returning Monday, the 18th of July. The Department of Planning and Land Management reported that the appraisals for the 13 Bruce Freeman Rail Trail easements and the 18 temporary easements were in. The total amount were approximately $194,000. They're sending that information to the homeowners for their review and the consideration for donations. The Municipal Light Plant Director reports that the conduit for Knox Trail has been laid and is complete. The conduit is located under the roadway of Knox Trail and goes about 400 feet on to the W.R. Grace land. This will allow for power on site for the bus depot and the solar farm. Additionally, we're going to use that same conduit to run fiber so that we can have internet access securely and phones at 37 Knox Trail for some of the town offices. Currently, the school bus drivers are occupying or plan to be occupying the first floor, the ground floor. They're preparing their construction documents. Our facilities manager, Jana Dengler, she met with Acton's building inspector and determined that as long as the town has access to some office on that first ground floor, which is handicapped accessible, we wouldn't need to put in an elevator, which was great because that would have been upwards of $350,000. Therefore, the school has agreed to allow the town to occupy one of the small offices in their suite that we will basically outfit with a small desk or a conference table, and it will be wired in so that if somebody needs something from anybody on the second floor, they can come down and accommodate. Right now, we are planning on having the beginning of the construction for the ADA accessible restrooms, which is required regardless of how we use the building. And those are going to be code compliant, and those will be located on the first floor. The second floor restrooms will be updated, but they do not need to be handicapped accessible, although they will maintain all of the regular code requirements. The staircase that goes from the bottom floor, the basement floor, all the way up is going to also be renovated. The pitch is very steep and it doesn't meet code, so we're going to make sure that we do that too. That will pretty much take up about the $42,000 that we had in the town meeting warrant article. But that'll be helpful because we'll be able to move persons from the town in. The Regional Housing Services Division is going to be occupying the main larger suite on the second floor, as well as Jana Dengler and some of the other facilities folks. That seemed to make sense because they could also share with the facilities folks that are going to be at the bus depot. And so we're hoping that we could have sort of one very large one-stop shopping for all of the tools and supplies and everything to maintain the town's buildings. Then we envisioned sort of making a bullpen type out of the third suite, which would be an area that we would stage employees when and if their buildings or their locations are under construction or having painting or anything like that. Coming up would be a renovation of the Kai's Road property where the building department would have to be removed for several months. And so that's a good place to put them for that. We haven't found anybody permanently for the bottom floor. However, we're able to save a great deal by having the construction management team and company for the bus farm and the solar farm project be located on that bottom floor. So we have filled it up. Ruth has announced her retirement. Her final day will be. We went over it. Yes, we will. We went over it. job description a bit in order to allow for, to incorporate some backup duties for the public information officer, as well as duties that align with the new town's website, which Sean is here to go over later. So at this point, we've posted the job internally, and the deadline for applications, at least internal applications, is the 18th of July. And we'll be back with an update with what we have and what we envision after there. And lastly, the Community Compact. A few months ago, we accepted a Community Compact agreement with the state of Massachusetts for public outreach and citizen engagement. The state initiative provides funding for municipalities to implement best practices promoted through the Compact Cabinet. So essentially, we've partnered with the state under the Lieutenant Governor's direction to create more opportunities for community outreach and social media usage to try to enhance citizen engagement. So that grant round is going to be opening first in the fall, and we're one of the first dozen communities to do it for citizen engagement and social media. So Sean and I are going to be tackling a few of those and hoping to get some dollars to kind of beef up our already going to be wonderful website. So.
That's great. I was able to sign that proclamation with the governors here, and I know we had a chance, maybe you specifically had a chance to talk to her about.
Yeah, we shot a little bit afterwards.
Yeah, so that's great.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's been on my list of things to follow up on, so that's fabulous.
Yeah, so it's signed, sealed, delivered, it's ours. And and so now comes, kind of the fun part, we think, because, getting there and, having the interviews and being accepted into it is all great, but now we really get to see what it all means other than just the proclamation and the piece of paper. So more to come on that.
Going back to Ruth's position, you said the internal deadline was the 18th, that was close.
Yes.
This is just for my understanding. Are we able to offer somebody a job internally without posting it externally? Is that?
Yes, we are if they meet the minimum qualifications, and we have a we go through an interview process much like you do externally, and certainly if somebody and. I think that's a great opportunity because there's a lot of people in town that are very talented and would like the opportunity to work in the town manager's office and for the select board. So it'll be interesting to see. It's different.
Well, yeah, great. Super, thank you.
Yeah, and Chris, like I said, will be returning on Monday.
Thank
Do
you.
you have any questions for them?
Just said that nobody's gonna be able to fill the shoes.
Yeah, I know that.
I hope there'll be a little transition.
I think we'll reserve comments on that personnel event until we absolutely have to. But that will be quite a transition for the board. Of course, it'll be a good transition for Ruth. Well, thank you very much, Kate. So it's 7:10, so I'd like to know if I could have a motion to open the public hearing.
I move to open the public hearing for petition of National Grid to open the ground to install 110 feet of 2-inch gas main in Muscataquid Road from house number 264 to house number 292 for new gas service.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Regan, and I'm the permit representative from National Grid. And tonight, I'm here to withdraw this petition because we received some recommendations and conditions, and we cannot put the pipe in the way the Public Works Director wants us to do it. As I explained to you people the last time I was here, we cannot speculate.
All right.
So he's requesting that we put an extra 50 or 60 feet of gas main in. We're not allowed to do that, the deregulation, huh?
Who is requesting?
It's the Director of Public Works.
Oh, Public Works.
We had lawyers here last year with the community relations people, and this was all at that time put to bed. So it seemed to be coming along then, but we cannot install it.
So Dennis, what's the process going forward then? What do you do? Go back to Public Works and talk to them? And
Well, they'll have to do something, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what I was doing here tonight.
Excuse me. I had a chance to think about this. The neighboring, the adjacent property right next door, did in fact have their pipe extended all the way down to the lot line by National Grid.
Well, we might have done that once, but we're not allowed to do that, okay? And he knows that we're not allowed to do it.
He said that he understood that you had said that they weren't allowed to do it, but he had asked for documentation, and he hasn't received that yet. And
Well-
to his knowledge, there were several other properties that were able to comply with those regulations.
Unless they change what we did on the petition, because I know when I get the drawings, the footage that's going in to get to the service. And like I said, it's not National Grid's. This is the state statute, okay? And we're not allowed to speculate because if that gas main does not get used, we have to send that back.
I think I went in, but I don't think we want to debate the issue here. I perfectly heard you withdrawing the application this evening, so I appreciate you coming
All
and
right.
telling us
Thank you.
why
Thank you all.
you did this. Thank you, Dennis, very much. It's not quite 7:15, so I'm going to suggest we move to item 7 on the,
Should we close it?
I'm sorry? Oh, well, do we have to close the public hearing, or what do we do?
In the sense of belts and suspenders, why not?
Can you give us a belt and
Should we deny
suspender?
the petition?
We'll indicate that it was, so I'm going to indicate for the record that the petitioner withdrew the petition for the extension of the gas main. And if you would move to close the public
Move
hearing.
to close the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Still have 1 minute. You go to item number 7 on the calendar. On the agenda, it's the vote to amend the Hugh Cargill Trust Committee. We've provided you with a clean copy of that. This is connected to the Silent Fund, which we approved, I think, we approved a memorandum of understanding between the First Parish Church and the Select Board of the Silent Fund at our last meeting. And this was the next step, which is to amend the Hugh Cargill Committee Trust Committee charge to allow it to deal with the Silent Fund. So, Steve?
I move to amend the charge of the Hugh Cargill Trust Committee substantially as discussed.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll say that in addition to including the Silent Fund, there was, as you will recall, some language changes because the charge was relatively old, and so Select Board as well, Select Fund, that sort of thing. It's now 7:15. I'd like a motion to open the public hearing in Saltbox Kitchen.
I move to open the hearing to approve the request of Saltbox Kitchen, 84 Commonwealth Avenue, to extend regular hours of operation to 9:30 p.m. on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Elliott?
Thank you for having me.
Right here.
Does anything need to be discussed, or?
Well, I think this is just I assume this is a change in your hours because business is good.
Yeah, no, yeah, right, yes, knock on wood. It is
These are
not.
better hours for me.
Like,
Just saying.
yeah, no, we had our year anniversary on Saturday, the brewery is now launched, and we figured we would just kind of now open later a few nights a week, and thought this would be a good time to do it. We'd like to probably start that at the beginning of August. I know that I'll touch base with Ruth about hearing from the powers that be, but to get your guys' approval first is great. If that's
Does this, Ruth, let me ask you, does this require any change in the liquor license?
This is the
This
change
is
in
the
the
liquor
liquor
license.
license. The hours of operation are the only things, as I understand the application. The only thing that changes is how late they stay open. They're not changing
right.
how early or.
You know, it doesn't add or detract the kind of liquor they could serve?
No, no
and-
change.
Yeah, the only change is that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights we would stay open until 9:30. Last call at 9 o'clock.
And in the previous, up until this change, you were closing at what time?
Every night we close at currently every night we close at 7.
So it's
But as everybody, I think, will recall, we had a reasonable number of individual consent items to
Yes.
extend the hours.
Yeah, that was us testing the waters a little bit with just opening late to see, what the response would be from people in town, but also to host our own events, like to have a Tuscan night with a menu and wine pairing, or a bistro night, and we will probably still do that from time to time, is instead of just staying open, have a special night where we do a special menu, but that'll be here and there, I think.
Well, I would be remiss in not missing the opportunity to ask you, how are the hops coming along?
Yeah, I was up in the field today. The buds are forming, and we need rain desperately. But
The drought is not helping
no,
anybody.
it's
And
not.
then when are they harvested?
Mid-September, probably, depending on
And it's is it the blossom that is actually harvested?
it's the blossom, correct? The bud.
It's always about the bud.
So it's
As a matter of fact,
any ink.
as a matter of fact, same family.
Does the farm still, do you still do the classes as well?
We are still doing the classes. There's a salmon class going on right now. Yeah, yeah. So the farm is in full swing. The classes are going. Brewery's up, and
Wow, it's great.
so we're done. No more.
You brought some additional property under cultivation too, I think, right?
I beg your
Did you
pardon?
bring some additional land under cultivation?
Yep,
Yeah,
that's correct. So
great.
we're good where we are. We're just going to focus on what we're doing.
Any other questions? Any comments or questions from the public? Mr. Ring,
Well, first I'll move to close the hearing.
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
And I move to approve the request of Saltbox Kitchen located at 884 Commonwealth Avenue, Benjamin Elliott, manager of record, to extend regular hours of operation to 9:30 on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Opening hours and all operations will remain unchanged.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Good to see everybody. Ruth, I know I'll see you, but congratulations. Good luck. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Ms. Techley. Next item is the vote to confirm board action approving collective bargaining.
No, we're not, we didn't get to Peter Buckley. 6.
I messed up, except do we have the revised funding agreement?
It was in your packet.
I thought she was coming
Elizabeth Rust won't be here until after 8.
till after 8, so then why don't we move on then? Nita, I'm sorry, I called you prematurely, but come on up. We have one more item before we get to you, but by the time you're seated, we should be done with it. This is item number 8. You will recall at an executive committee meeting that the board voted to approve the collective bargaining agreement as presented with the Public Safety Dispatchers Union. And so tonight, we simply need a motion to confirm that vote.
Okay. I move to confirm the vote taken in executive session on Monday, June 20th, 2016, to approve the memorandum of agreement between the town and the Public Safety Dispatchers Union dated June 15, 2016, and further to authorize the town manager to execute an agreement between the town and the union consistent with the memorandum of agreement for the period from July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2018.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. As you know, we have a special district-wide election scheduled for September 20th, which is a Tuesday. And it's actually not a regular election. It's not a town election. It's not a state election. This is a district election, and the rules are different. The district school committee determines how many precincts, polling hours, and all we have to do is run it.
So the district, just for clarification, is Minuteman Vocational.
Minuteman Vocational. There are 16 towns in the district. And they have asked each of the 16 communities to designate one polling location. And the law says that they actually determine it after consultation with this board. And my recommendation is that that you designate Harvey Wheeler. Only
facility that we're currently using as a polling location that would be able to accommodate all the precincts. I was able, fortunately, to successfully negotiate on behalf of the other, myself and the other 15 communities. I negotiated with the state that we do not have to run this election by precinct.
Oh, good.
Because the results don't have to be given to the district by precinct, so we're going to be able to do it much easier.
Last names.
We're just using last names. Far fewer staff members will need to be there, and one machine, fewer booths and whatever. So, but Harvey Wheeler, even with a 10% turnout, we're up to get 1,000 or so people. So Harvey Wheeler really is about the only one who could manage that.
I think for the record, I would just indicate that this vote became necessary because the various towns in the district are asked to approve an appropriation for the new high school, and subsequently all towns but Belmont approved it, including Concord approving it, and subsequent to the town meeting vote to approve the appropriation, we had a town election, in which we voted to exclude it from debt.
That's correct.
And with Belmont voting no, then the district exercised its option to call a district-wide vote. And the district-wide vote will be a majority of the people voting will decide, not by town. And if Concord, if the vote passes, we will not need to go back to the ballot box to reaffirm the debt exclusion, but that the previous vote on debt exclusion will be applicable to this election. So you and I spoke briefly about whether or not we would want to talk to them or about a second polling place, and I don't recall.
I think that would have been a worthwhile exercise had we not been able to negotiate with the state that we don't have to do this by precinct. But I think we could easily manage at one location. We're not expecting a very large turnout. I would hope to get a good turnout, but the prior two district elections one was 4%, one was around 10%. So we're hoping for the higher end there.
And what would the hours of operation be?
Noon to 8 p.m. And absentee ballots would be available similar to other elections up until noon on the day before. So if someone were not available to come from noon to 8, they could vote by absentee. It's just going to be one question on the ballot, so it's going to be a simple ballot.
And what, other than the hundreds and hundreds of people listening to this broadcast, how do we make sure folks are aware of this?
Minuteman is going to do a district-wide mailing to notify people of the polling place in each of our communities, and they will be doing some publicity, and I would be doing some as well, telling people about availability of absentee ballots and about the special election. I know as long as they're doing the mailing, I don't see that we need to do a special mailing, but we can certainly do some publicity.
And I've not had this happen since I've been on the board, but are we obligated, or is it wise for us to think about some kind of hearing about this matter?
No, it's not really our matter. It's Minuteman Schools' debt. It's not our debt. We just are approving it.
Well, but previously,
we already had a hearing prior to our town meeting, our annual town meeting, and then it passed overwhelmingly at town meeting and at the
right.
and at the polls. So I think that would be superfluous to have a separate hearing.
Okay.
Absentee ballots would be ready by what time?
Generally, they're available at least 3 weeks before, but I'm hoping we get them a little sooner. But sometime by the end of August, we will have them available. We're expecting absentee ballots for the state primary, which is September 8th. Expecting them by the end of July, so that which is earlier than normal. But Minuteman is hopefully the ballot's already done. They just need to get all of us to determine our polling location, and so I'm expecting that we'll have them by the end of August, if not sooner.
I know at the end of the workday, sometimes getting over to Harvey Wheeler can be awfully crowded, and while we may not get a a huge number of voters. I think the more voters that could participate, the better. So,
Absolutely, so.
I think it's important to have those absentee ballots.
No, and their Minuteman will send us as many as we need, so. They're paying, I should mention that they're paying for any of our costs for this election.
Oh, good.
What you estimate the cost of this?
I don't think it'll be very much at all. They're, the only thing they will not reimburse us for is if we feed our election officers. So, which is a fairly nominal, I mean, it's a few $100s, but, and I won't feed them lunch since the polls are closing, or opening late, but, because that's not consistently handled across the district, they thought it was easier just not reimbursing us for meals. So I think the non-reimbursable costs are going to be under $500.
Maybe the culinary art section of the Minuteman could donate.
And again, just for the record, folks might recall that the district had until June 30th to resolve this matter, but once Belmont voted no, they appealed to the MSBA and were granted an extension until November 30th, I believe.
That's correct.
So this an election, we'll know the results of that and be able to communicate with the MSBA.
They, the Minuteman staff has been very cooperative working with the clerks, and they will be meeting with all of us at the end of July to kind of go over all the procedures and to answer any questions. There are still some issues. This is a first for all of us. The rules are very different from regular elections, so there's some concern among the clerks, and so hopefully those will be alleviated after this meeting.
All right. Does anybody in the audience have a question or comment? Not any more from the board? All right, I entertain a motion.
I move to designate Harvey Wheeler Community Center at 1276 Main Street as Concord's sole polling place for the September 20th, 2016 special district election, and to so notify the Minuteman School Committee of this recommendation.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Anita, is it you that notifies them?
I will, yes. They actually called me already this morning and said the meeting, we had not had the vote yet, so.
All right, thank you very much. And the next item is you as well.
Correct. This is a designation of our voting equipment. We have had our existing voting equipment since 1996, and it served us very well. It still functions, but it's time. There are newer models. What we have now is no longer being sold. No longer parts or some parts are squirreled away somewhere, but not by us. So we don't have a lot of control over this. But it is time, and Concord, as you know, loves to have special elections, and so it isn't just like we have one election on the odd-numbered years and 3 elections on the even-numbered years. We just have all these extras, and I calculated that we've used these machines for 69 elections, and we have 2 more to go. We will use these same machines for the September election. So we've processed almost 300,000 ballots through these machines. And again, they've served us well, but it's time to move on. We have money in the fiscal 16 appropriation, which I've reserved. We're a little slow getting this process completed, but we now have, we went through an RFP, and there are only 2 approved machines available now going forward, and the one I am recommending that be designated came in as the lower bid, but it's also one of the 2 that we actually were the test community, one of 2 test communities that tested them in March of 2015. So any of you who voted in that election, I think all of you did, it was a little bit different. It had a little screen that kind of welcomed you and showed you how to put your ballot through and then thanked you. So it was unlike now where you just kind of put the ballot through and there's nothing there in front of you. This will have a video screen in front of you.
Which, was that at all the precincts?
It was. It was. We were, Concord and Reading were the 2 test sites, and it worked really seamlessly. Most people didn't even notice that it was different, although this screen was not on our current equipment.
I don't either.
But, so you didn't notice either? Well,
What's to become of the old machines?
to be determined. There's not much of a trade-in value, but we will, perhaps
The
offer them.
Smithsonian would want it, or?
No, there are still communities like us that still use them, so that we may be able to dispose of them with the community that needs a backup.
The schools ever
I was
have
gonna say.
elections?
Yes.
I mean, student body, they must have like student body. president.
Maybe the hotly contested student senate races could.
They'd have to be, for each election, they have to be programmed to use them, which is costly. It runs a few $100s. So I think it's unlikely that there's much of a market, but in any event, we will dispose of them properly.
What is the cost of these two
The
new rascals?
the new ones are just under $33,000 for 6 machines
Total.
total. And frankly, that was about the price in 1996. So they were about $6,000 each back then. So the price has come down a little bit. So in 20 years.
Good deal.
Um,
All right.
5 districts, right?
Well, thank
and
you.
these would be in place for the November
For the
presidential
general
election. Everyone will be trained in them before then, and we'll do some publicity. Again, we did use them in Concord in March of last year, but we will still go through some additional training, which is part of their proposal, so we don't have to pay additional for that. But I liked them, and I liked the others were okay, but these were better. And
All right. Any comments or questions from the audience? Hearing none, any more questions from the board? I would entertain a motion.
I move to designate the DS200 electronic voting machine as Concord's voting equipment beginning with the November 8th, 2016 state presidential election.
All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wish I was voting in Concord.
Sean?
The new machine. We have the one. that-
Next item on the agenda is an update on the town's website refresh. Sean, I think that means you're up.
It's the top.
Yeah, it just takes a second for the projector to boot up. Just start off briefly. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board for inviting me tonight to give you guys an update on the progress of the concordma.gov website redesign. It's been about a 3 or 4 month process since it started, but we're excited for this to finally commence in about a month or two. And I think it's going to be well worth the wait that everyone's been looking forward to. So I just wanted to give you a brief timeline of what's been happening since the process started. In late February, the town manager entered into a contract for the town with Civic Plus as our vendor for website redesign and hosting services. In early April, I formed the web committee comprised of representation from each of the major departments in town, as well as some of the divisions, in order to gather some ideas from across town and to hear what important functions each department needed in order to best serve the public. So that brings us to May 10th, when I submitted 3 forms to Civic Plus, a web optimization form, content form, and a DNS or domain name system worksheet. And the web optimization and content forms posed a variety of questions that helped shape the goals that we wanted for the community to be able to serve everyone and meet everyone's needs. And that included demographic information and aspects of other municipal sites that we thought was interesting. So we sort of took an a la carte approach and informed our ideas. And the DNS form just helped us, for clarification, to assess the needs of our current DNS services so that we'd be able to have the concordma.gov host name and be able to transition that seamlessly to the new site when it goes live. Additionally, I submitted photos and I tried to provide an array from Concord and West Concord, Concord Center and West Concord, as well as the list of the subscribed news items that we have, like news and notices and the select board agenda. I had to transfer those over, as well as giving them access to our web analytics so they knew which pages were most visited, and so they were able to sort of mold their decisions based on that. And then on May 20th, began the migration of our current website information. So anything that was on the website as of that date was migrated over. And so I advised staff to keep track of any changes that they made to the website after May 20th. And so they'll be able to make those changes in between when they're trained on the website and when the new website goes live. So that's going well so far. And then in early June, just this past month, the web committee reconvened, and we got I gave them an update on the progress that had been made since April, including the forms being submitted and any other discussions I had with the project manager, and sort of went over any questions or concerns that they had right before the reveal, which is actually coming up this Thursday. So, this is a very nondescript version of what the website will look like. This slide shows the proposed layout that was presented to us in May. You can't really see it, and you can't really read the buttons that are on there, but it doesn't matter because that's just like a block version. So there's no need to know the detail, but you'll see that this is what it'll look like in general. Right here you have the frequently used buttons on the horizontal and vertical bars. And they'll have information that would be frequently asked for, such as minutes and agendas, job opportunities, emergency notification system, like code red if there are any alerts. They're spread between the two bars, so people don't have to go through the whole website to find the information they need, the frequently visited pages.
Separate buttons horizontally and vertically?
Yes.
It would be important to note, though, that we have decided to take on the idea of the universal design, where you don't just have to read the letters that are there, but also we want to have the radio buttons be actual pictures of what's there. So that was one of the things that Sean and I were working with the company. So minutes and agendas would be, a sheet of paper or a picture. And, emergency might be a radio car light. And we could have, select board stuff with the gavel and a few other things that are sort of iconic that, you understand that you have a visual icon and then you have the written words underneath it. So we were trying to come up with what we would think are the most frequently hit buttons. A lot of it is building permits. A lot of it is the assessor's maps. And so we want to make sure that that's visually represented as well as, so.
And so you'll also see the calendar is front and center, as well as news flash, which is essentially news and notices. So the top news will be right on the front page, right next to our Twitter feed, which Mr. Amy is a frequent retweeter of, and I appreciate it very much.
You gotta follow the hats one I made too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll get on that. So we're trying to make it more interactive and more integrated with the new social media platforms that we're using, so that the more access to information the public can have is better. So up top you'll also see our LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter will have another link there, and any other future social media platforms
YouTube.
that we might use.
We're making a YouTube channel.
Oh,
okay.
So it's just a matter of.
The other thing to note is the black box that's at the top and the one right next to it. Here it just says, whatever your image is, but we're actually chose to have scrolling images that go through. And so that's going to lead to a lot of what we hope to be sort of online campaigns. So we could have a decorate your house for Halloween. You take your picture and submit it, and it'll be a scrolling, of people's homes and stuff. Because one of the things that we found when we were looking at how everybody else does it is we want to take everything that's great from everyone's site, and if we put it all on ours, then ours will be the best. So we took one or two good things from every community that was the best. So now we'll have them all.
Will the news and notice, will that also be will that be updated between?
You'll see the most current ones, and
Okay.
they can stay for a period as basically as long as we want. One of the things that we were struggling with is we don't have any consistency with how long things have stayed on. So there's select board meeting minutes that date back, 12, 13 years. That's great. But then there's other boards that don't have anything except for from 8 years ago. So, so what we're hoping to do is have it be consistent, where it's these drop-down menus that on the page, when you go to the whatever department's page, you have all of the minutes and agendas for that current year, but then you can also look at the past records. And we have committed to going back all the way to 2008. Prior to 2008, it depends on, you know, the individual boards and committees, and unless it is our things like finance committee, select board, some of the heavy hitters, you know, the ones that people are really looking for, zoning board of appeals, that would be on there, but other ones would be in history, and then prior to 2008. You know, eventually it'll be great to have it all up there, but every single document that we take past 2008 is in a form that doesn't convert to here, so Sean or I or someone else has to painstakingly go through and convert all those to the proper, you know, form to be able to display up there. And for the amount of people that are going to be looking for stuff that far in the past, you know, 2007 and on, it just didn't seem worthwhile right now, but we're open to changing our mind as we roll out what we have.
Are the news items direct feeds, or are they things you actually will insert?
Things that we insert. So similar to news and notices on the right-hand side of our website, it'll be just what we post as we go. Road closures or peak demand hours from a light plant, like items like that will show up in the same format. And then up top, we also have the global items, which will be, for example, board and committee information, department information, stuff like that. And then as well as an item that I'm actually really excited about is the How Do I button. And it sort of makes it easy, commonly asked questions, and we sort of compiled a bunch of different ideas from all the different departments on what you see most often from the public in terms of phone calls. And we're going to try to digger everything into the website. And if there's one centralized place where people can find easy to find information, I mean, I think that'll sort of make everyone's lives a little bit easier, both theirs and...
Like a pop-up screen?
No, so I'll actually demonstrate it at the end of the presentation.
Our whole thing is if you can't find it in between 2 and 2.5 minutes, you're going to stop looking, and we don't want you to stop looking.
2 minutes.
So
What about a connection back and forth to the schools?
we can link our page to theirs.
I'm thinking about from, you know, our long-range goals, and that while they're separate sites, you know, they're questions that the same people are asking.
So if we find that there's a lot of questions, or if they have frequently asked questions, what we can do is if you click on that particular question, it can just redirect you to their site. It would just be a way to jump from one to the other. The only thing with that is what we're trying to get away from, that'll happen less frequently than what's happening now, but what's happening now is that you have to open several windows to be able to get to the answer. So we're trying to avoid, depending on what where the answer is buried within their website, because theirs isn't a Civic Plus. So how many windows will you have to open, and is that going to be, you know, iPad and iPhone easy? But I mean, it's certainly willing. It's not hard to do on our end. I just don't know if it's going to make people less frustrated on their end.
So
The
the regional district anyway, is a separate entity. And as I've trolled around our current website, sometimes I'm staying inside the website, and other times I'm being shipped off someplace. Now, for the regional school district, you know, that's their jurisdiction. But what are we doing with town jurisdictions that when you click on them, you leave this environment? Are we still allowing that?
No, you don't leave the site. If you can envision that to be the web page, the red part means that you're always here in there, but the part that's white and black that you're seeing right now will change. But it's not one window to one window to one window.
So it'll be a concordma.gov/environment, always.
I think just to clarify, there's a couple of applications such as the online bill payment.
It's different.
That takes you to a third-party site, but everything else will be.
No, I care about.
You want to go to the building department, Concord MA/building.
Well, I don't want to go anywhere, but if I click on it,
Right.
But if I click on it, that's what's going to show up in the header.
communities may have a link to, like 2229 Main Street might have an EPA link, so it'll take, like, I think that's kind of their setup.
That's different. What I think we want to try to avoid is clicking on a town jurisdiction of some kind and finding ourselves outside of this environment.
Yeah, it wouldn't do that. We wouldn't have that capability other than whatever we put on here. So any online registration databases, like for recreation programs and
I
online
get that.
payments, but those are pretty typical and those are covered by, but this is sort of its own bubble.
All right.
You're gonna stay in the bubble, we're just gonna bounce you around inside the bubble.
And this is something I'll take up with you folks in another setting, but as we move to include on here things like we're going to keep it for X number of years, months, days, whatever it is, and these are the kinds of things, and this is how you do it, I'd like for us to think about putting together a small piece for town boards and committees that would be something we could distribute to the chairs and the various committees so that, you know, that kind of thing. And I had a chance to briefly chat with Kate and Sean last week about this. And we had this education committee that you were a member of that had this event in September, and we're going to try to get back together and figure out what to do. But I think one of the things we might think about including in whatever it is we try to do is here's how you use the site, not for the general public, I mean, but for people who
Boards and committees.
have committees and stuff like that. So you and we can,
I think that'd be in our best interest anyways, because after the first 4 years, we automatically get a free redesign of the website through Civic Plus, automatically included in the fee that we have. So I couldn't foresee us changing vendors. So I think it'd be smart for us to
Thank you.
start
Sorry.
something like that.
I assume anybody who wants to sign up as a volunteer, instead of coming in and doing the green card, or the access through this?
Oh, yes, that is a hope, and yes, yeah, we would also like to have eventually online liquor license applications. I mean, we're really moving to, not that we wouldn't have paper, but to devolumize that and to know that if I'm in charge of liquor licenses, that I know that I can get it at my home, on my tablet, in my car, whatever, as long as I'm not driving.
Well, the green
But it's
card-
all there, it's not lost, that kind of thing, because
will the green card be green?
it depends on the paper in your printer.
No, the image of it on
I
the
don't
screen.
Oh, you want
Yeah.
the image on the screen? Well,
Otherwise
I
it's
don't
not a green
know.
card
I'm not
anymore.
sure.
We'll
I'm
have
not
to
sure if green's in our color
Come up with-
palette.
yeah.
How can that be?
Well, actually, our color palette is similar to the school, so we're trying to match up. And I gave them the school colors just so you could know that if you're with the town of Concord or
Green card?
We can make it green.
Gold card.
Gold card.
We got,
And I think it would be helpful for volunteers. I mean, they would have then access to the charge and, the minutes and all the information, so they could educate themselves fairly quickly in terms of what might be the most appropriate for them. And, I think the more we can get people signed up to volunteer to committees, the better it's going to be.
Yeah.
that's another structure of links. I mean, on the one hand, there's boards and committee you click, you could go to the charge, the minutes, the agenda, but if I was accessing a green card,
Yeah.
could I go from that directly to a committee charge without having to go back to boards and committees and then, you know what I mean?
Well, it'll be an online form, like a Google
No, the
Doc.
form I'm not concerned about. I'm thinking
Ease of
citizen Mike wants to volunteer, but he's not exactly sure what would be really good. I don't want to open every single board and committee and look at every single, so could we look at an environment that had the charges?
You want a menu of charges.
Could be.
Yeah.
That
I
seems
don't know.
easy
Not the way
enough.
that would be automatically understood as charges.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, but if there's a volunteer space, let's make, as
Yeah.
Thomas
Yeah.
suggested, let's see if we can.
Volunteering in Concord.
So
Yeah.
please go ahead, sorry for interrupting.
And so on the next, I took out some key improvements that the major things that I see as benefits, improvements from our current website to the new one is huge. Centralized location of board and committee minutes and agendas. In the other towns that I've worked for and volunteered for, there have been centralized place to find those things, and now we have to go to different boards and committees pages, and then some are on the calendars. If we can make it easy and compartmentalize, I think it'll be a lot easier for people to find the information they're looking for. So I see that as a huge benefit. And I'm going to be demonstrating this on Hingham's website, because they have a Civic Plus website also, and it'll sort of make more sense when I bring it up that way. but as well as improved search engine capabilities. When you search something on our current website, you may or may not find what you're looking for, and we're trying to make it easier for everyone. So there's a benefit that I see in this is when you start typing in a word, it has like the smart technology that sort of predicts what you're, so you type in BOA and then it says, oh, board committee, and it'll drop down list of everything.
Like any commercial search.
Exactly. So it's much easier. Optimized navigation. That'll make more sense when I pull up Hangham's website, but it sort of shows you everything on one screen instead of having to click, click, click. And we're trying to reduce the amount of clicks that someone goes through to try to find the information they're looking for. Better integration with existing applications. So you had, we had sort of briefly touched on that earlier. And so things like C-Click Fix and online, stuff like that, we're trying to make it so it integrates as opposed to taking you to a third-party site. So we're slowly moving towards that and making it more interactive for visitors. And responsive design, which for many mobile-friendly users will find this as a perk, because currently when you look on our website on a mobile device, it doesn't exactly show up as it would on a desktop computer. So I'll be able to exemplify that when I bring it in. And the biggest and best thing to me is the modernized look and feel. Bringing it up to 2016, having it look like a modern website, having it sort of exemplify Concord's unique character. I think it'll sort of be representative of that. So I'm happy that I'm able to be a part of this redesign and bringing it up to a modernized look and feel. Upcoming dates that are important. This Thursday, we'll have the reveal to Kate, myself, and the Chief Information Officer, Mark Howell. So we'll be able to see it for the first time.
It's like Christmas.
It's like Christmas. And then next Monday, we're going to be presenting that to the web committee. So the 15 members will be able to see that. And then subsequently, we'll be showing it to the senior management team. And then at that point, we're going to start taking in comments and questions of things that people may say, oh, well, we were looking for this, but it's not showing up. So, but I'm thinking we're not going to have much of that because most people were able to provide their comments and we've been able to integrate that into it. So I don't see many revisions that will need to be made, but there will be a period of about a month or so where members will be able to make comments.
Would it be all right with you if some of us invited ourselves to the July 28th?
Training?
No, not to training so much, although why not? But to just see what it's going to look like. Would that be okay for you?
I mean, I would imagine that Chris would bring it to you.
As a regular?
That was our thought, but I
okay,
can't
that's
volunteer him, but I would imagine that he would be doing that. We would load up on his.
We'll tell him that you committed him to that.
I don't get to volunteer him, but I would think that he,
That's fine.
that he would.
If
you know.
it's going to be that way, that's
You could
fine.
see it twice, because it's going to be that marvelous. You'll want to see it twice.
Okay.
And then on August 2 through 4, over a 3-day period, approximately 30 staff members will have the opportunity to be trained on how to use the website for their individual departments, which I'm excited about. And I believe this will be a helpful way for town staff to start fresh and learn an easy-to-use platform. If I were to be gone tomorrow, I would feel totally comfortable that everyone would be able to learn this because it's a very intuitive product, and I get to use it in Framingham. They had an old version, and then they upgraded to the new version, which we're actually, the version that we're getting is going to be newer than the one Framingham has, and I learned it very quickly. It's very easy to use, so I'm excited for that. The back end of our current website is a bit daunting to those that aren't technically savvy, but I'm confident that Civic Plus will be much more intuitive, and I'm hopeful for that. So it brings us to the most important part. Late August, early September, Civic Plus gave us a rough time frame of when we're going to be launching, but I'll be finding out that date as we move closer and make sure that everyone's properly trained before we go ahead and go live. But
It'd be really great to be up and running by Labor Day.
Yeah.
So I'll make a note for
Lessen the labors.
Just a thought.
Slow it down.
It'd be the same address, right? ConcordMA.gov.
Yeah, so the DNS worksheet that I filled out will make sure that everything points.
We actually own that domain, which is good. So.
Sounds good.
So it's just a matter of changing the IP.
Great.
I don't know how much training it would take for committee chairs to kind of become familiar with this, but I know the meeting that I went to, the Bruce Friedman Rail Trail, one of the things they wanted to do was to make sure the public had more information about it. And this is the type of thing, it seems, that the chair, if they had an understanding of how this would work, might really be able to provide a lot of good material so when it does get launched, it's got what we want on it.
Yeah. But we want to make sure there's some training for
Yeah.
all of the chairs and.
Bit of an awareness of
Everybody
what's
else
available and what,
So the staff training is going to be for the in-house folks where we're going to talk about everything soup to nuts. And then what we're planning on doing is having Sean and myself and possibly 2 other folks who are able to sort of become trainers, but in the areas that people on the boards and commissions would want to access.
Yeah.
People on boards and commissions don't necessarily need to or even want to know how to change the color of the home screen or change the pictures, and that stuff is really for us. So what we would do is try to, boil down to what it is that you want to know. Let's try to do that in a 30-minute session or something.
Yep.
And maybe we do it twice a year so that if people are coming on and off boards or whatever, we're just kind of this revolving door of that. But we're trying to, the 3 days is, this intensive, this is everything. And then from there, we'll try to pick and choose, because some boards and committees want to be able to upload pictures, others don't, so.
I think seeing maps and photographs
Absolutely,
and things
yeah,
would be extremely helpful for people.
And the other thing is to have the IT department work on, integrating our GIS into this system too. And so
Absolutely.
that is something that is really outside of our skill set, but the, Mark Howell and the information
yeah.
team will be able to knock that out.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just bring up Hingham's website now so you guys can take a look and I can sort of demonstrate what some of these things mean. So the agendas and minutes tab right here, you'll see that it'll bring you to, it'll look exactly like this, and it'll have all the boards and committees, and you break them down into drop-down menus. But you can see here, everyone's minutes and agendas are going to be here. If they show them for the past 3 years, and then into view more would mean that they'd show archival ones.
That's going to keep everybody current.
Exactly. So it'll be helpful to, because most cases you won't be looking for 3 years prior, but in case you do, they're there, and it'll be broken down, and I think that'll be much easier for everyone to see. And so when I said the global items that are up top, in terms of making it easier, you're on one page and you can see all the boards and committees without having to click to another page, which I think is huge.
Yeah.
And then you just move away from having it hovered over and it just goes away.
Oh.
So it's just much easier. The how do I function, how do I access the calendar, how do I access the fitness room, how do I apply for something, how do I contact someone. Items like this that people might be interested in accessing without having to click through 5 or 6 pages to get to it. I see that as a huge benefit. And then the search function, let's type in select. Maybe, I don't even know if there's so things that you might be looking for. Maybe you're looking for a set of their minutes. Maybe you're looking for their meeting on demand videos, policies, stuff like that you might be looking for. Or you can just type in the whole thing and see the search results. So let's see what else.
But there is a calendar that you have.
Yep.
I think
So the calendar would look similar to this, and here's the news flash that I was talking about. So the news and notices would have the title here, and then the subsequent information under it. Calendar, quick links. We don't have the quick links. That's more under our global items, and they don't have their Twitter feed that's integrated with this. But
Well, so our Twitter feed will be where
ours
their
will.
quick
So this
links
isn't,
are.
I wouldn't base it, I'm just showing you the functions of it, but it's not necessarily going to look like this. But just to show you some of the capabilities of a Civic Plus website, and of course the modernized look and feel. It'll embody Concord values, not in Hingham's embodies Hingham values. So, but that's about it.
Right.
Can I ask a simple question?
Sure.
Up at the top of the purple bar,
Yep.
when you click on the Facebook or Twitter links, where do they go? Is it the,
It takes you to the actual page. It wouldn't stay on. So, for example, if you just click on theirs, it'll bring you to Hingham's Facebook page, which will be great because sometimes people want to access their information via social media as opposed to going on the website. So,
Other than the browser back button, is there an embedded back button in those links?
no,
Open a separate window?
you
You
could
could make it do that.
It-
Yeah, you could.
yeah.
It could either be a tab or.
Well, that's your computer's setting, no,
Yeah.
not us, where you would indicate on your computer, open clicks in a separate tab.
Well, you
That's-
can embed a return, you know what I mean? You can embed a return to,
Not from Facebook.
Yeah, from
They don't,
Facebook.
yeah, no, because that's a locked area,
not
so.
as an overlay even, huh? Okay.
So that's about all. Any other questions?
so I have a question about, again, about social media. Do we have this, or are you considering policies for the town to think about? From time to time, committees ask whether they can have their own Facebook pages or their own Twitter accounts. And that's why I was asking where that Facebook or Twitter would go. If you click here, what, do we have thoughts or policies regarding
We've
that?
started to define
I
some
actually
policies.
have. So there's a company that that tried to solicit our they wanted to be a vendor for us, and they actually, as one of their free items, they gave us like a draft social media policy for our Massachusetts community. So I sort of took that and I'm sort of tailoring it to Concord. So that's in the works right now, but I'm caught up with the website stuff with the deadlines. But that is in the works, just to sort of define. It's always good to have a social media policy. You hope that you don't have to implement it or use it as enforcement, but it's always good to have something to fall back on. And
Is there a way to know, I mean, I've noticed this is true, that with certain, the police department has its own Facebook page. Is there a way, if you're just going through the web page, to know whether there are other pages that would, that are
Our
active?
Facebook page has links that say, if you like this, you may like, and it'll come up with the other
some
ones
communities
on the
have a
town.
list of all their departments, boards, committees that have social
Right.
media accounts, so that's something that I'm hoping.
You could also embed the Facebook and the Twitter icons if you went to the select board and it had a Facebook page. You could embed
Exactly.
it on the landing page.
With,
for-
with that page.
With that
Yeah,
link.
exactly.
So,
Somerville does a really good job of that. They have a list of all theirs, and you can sort of, with the icons associated with them, but they have a page just on social that shows you all of them. So you can say, instead of having to go to each person's
Right.
page or department's page, you'd be able to just go to that one page and say, okay, the Public Works Department has one, so does the Select Board, so does the Town Manager.
Because there's some that are just more actively, that's where people are active, and it's less active on, the town
For
webpage.
sure.
I think though that my encouragement is not to go any further with these social media accounts than the landing pages.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a terrific item to talk about at some future meeting. What should the social media policy be? Because on the one hand, you want to take advantage of it. On the one hand, you don't want to lose control and have, stuff that you don't even know what the heck is going on. And
Exactly.
just
We've been charged with coming up with one that
that'd be
then will
great.
be
So
given to you guys
just
for
come
review
talk
and
to us about it, because
discussion.
I think that would be an important, an
Right.
important item.
And I think there'll be one for general boards and committees and volunteers, and then there's also gonna be something else for staff,
Yeah, sure,
because
makes
they're
absolute
a
sense.
bit different.
Absolutely.
Well, and then we have the friends of, I mean, there are a number of layers that, to look at.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about sort of organizations like Emerson Umbrella,
Right.
or the library, which are both part of the town and then have their own separate, how do we deal with that kind of stuff? That's
Yeah.
terrific.
Work on it.
Well, we're grateful to you. I know you worked a lot on this, and so too have you, Kate. That's great.
We'll
Thanks.
keep you updated. We'll work with Chris to get you guys in on the review also.
Thank you.
We look forward to.
Thanks very
town
much.
meeting this,
Thanks so much.
Thank
I
you.
greatly appreciate it. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
Oh, I think we have a
Mr.
question.
Graham, do you have a question? Please come up and sit down. It's nice to see you.
Same here.
Yep.
Everyone looks well. It's good to see. Robert Grom, Mildred Circle, member of the school committee, but speaking as an individual. I was just wondering, on this website committee, was there any public input?
It was internal staff.
So no public input?
Well, we had gotten public input from conversations and
Yeah.
board members and other committees that we talked to, but we generally, because what we're talking about rolling out is we're really rolling out the back end of it right now. A lot of the things that we even just talked about, that isn't gonna happen until it's here and we say, we'd like to add this, we'd like to add this, we'd like to
I
add
mean,
this.
is it too late to have that?
Oh,
or-
no, and I think once we roll it out live, we're going to have, hopefully, an open online forum where you can say, I like that you tried to put a piece of paper to me minutes and agendas, but I'm being very simplistic, but I don't find that to be helpful, and get that kind of information, but without any product to show anybody, it was very difficult for us to be able to
Bob, as you
really.
may, I mean, these are very, as you may know, this is a very tricky kind of problem when you have webs, and we had talked about this both at board meetings and offline, and my thinking on it was there was so much remedial action that was necessary here that that we would be way better off if we got a town website that was current, pretty effective, and then engage the question, all right, now what kind of enhancements or additional capabilities would the various parts of the community find useful? But if we did that before, coupled with, just
It'd be such a broad thing.
just the basic stuff that has had to get fixed that would just slow us down beyond
There's
belief.
also quite a few questions that we want people to be able to answer once they can see it in context.
Yeah.
As in, if you're a town or a friends of, but not necessarily a town board or committee, does that belong here? People, kind of automatically think, oh, I'll go to the town website and I'll find that. I don't think people understand the new. So is that something that people want? Is that not helpful? And things like the Emerson Umbrella, they have their own site. Would they like just a link, or do they want us to include that kind of stuff and use a separate calendar? So
There's a lot of policies that have to get thought through, but clearly the point you're making is a perfect good one, especially for a town like Concord, which survives on volunteers to carry out so many functions. We really need to make sure we've incorporated it. But I'd like it to be, this is a pretty good site, and how can we make it better, as opposed to hearing 500 comments, this doesn't work, can you fix it?
No, what you're saying makes sense, obviously, and I agree with it, but I just want to make sure that at some stage there's
It'll happen.
an official way for the public to get involved, if they want a particular function or they want to, make it more user-friendly in this particular part of the website, et cetera, that there's some kind of format where they can come forward and,
Point
present
taken.
those ideas
Point
to
taken.
the committee. Okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Right, thank you very much, Sean, Kate, greatly appreciate it. Coming back, Ms. Rust, you'd like to come up, this Peter Buckley project?
Hi, I'm Liz Rust. I'm here for the Regional Housing Services Office. And in your package might be a memo and a document. So this is a quick agenda item. I think I was here 6 months ago, something. So the Peter Buckley, there are 4 expansion units that are being developed. The original project was 24 units, contemplated to be 28, so we've been working at building those other 4 units. The home program that Concord's part of received an award through an RFP for some number of funds, and last year there was $13,504.37 extra in the home consortium, so they gave it to Concord for this project. So that requires your signature to get an amended home funding agreement, is what that is.
Terrific.
That's a good problem.
It's a good problem to have, yeah. All right, well, does the board have any questions? All right, so
All right.
I would be happy to entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the town manager to sign the home project funding agreement amendment that will enable the grant of an additional $13,504.37 for the Peter Buckley Phase 2 project.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. That's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Appreciate it very much. We've lost most of our public. Miss Miller, do you have a comment? You seem to be the only. And Henry, anybody have public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. Committee liaison reports. What do we have?
I went on the 7th. I was unable to attend the Board of Assessors meeting because there was the Bruce Friedman Rail Trail Advisory Committee. But I did find that Cynthia Rainey was selected as the liaison to the Tax Fairness Committee, and otherwise they just had standard business issues. The Rail Trail Advisory Committee was a very good meeting discussing getting information to the citizens, the use of the website, providing frequently asked questions with the answers in terms of access issues, parking, sidewalks, working with the West Concord Advisory Committee, timing of construction, discussions of right-of-way process, and discussion of our August 15th meeting. So that was, I think, a very productive meeting. They're going to actually be meeting, coming to the 15th, and be meeting, I think, at 4:30 before us if there are any issues, and then stay for the meeting. So.
Good. So I'll just take that opportunity to remind everybody we do have this meeting scheduled for the 15th. I know you won't be able to attend, but everybody else has indicated that they could, so we'll have a quorum. And then a reminder also that at 7 o'clock that same evening is the Acton Selectmen's meeting that will take up the Nagog Pond issue. And I know I'm going. I don't know who else is going to be going to that. So any other?
No, I was with that.
James?
I attended both the Comprehensive Long Range Plan Committee and Estabrook Woods Committee, two of them since the last Select Board meeting. And things are moving along. We, as I think we all saw at the public hearing, there was a lot of discussion on the Estabrook Woods approach, and I think the committee seems to be moving through various tasks, looking at the history of use, access points, and there's general, it seems like there's a lot of productive coming together on this. The Long Range Planning Committee is still early. We're sort of sorting out the venue or the scope of the process. However, with the co-chairs Elise Woodward and Gary Kleiman, I'm a third wheel at best.
Lucky group.
So it's these are two daunting tasks, and I'd say that we are well on our way. I wasn't able to attend the NRC meeting last week, but checked in, and it was, largely business as usual. The only noted item of interest might have been the demolition of the Red Barn at the Concord Museum. But in most of the issues, in fact, all of them in front of the NRC this week, they are I think it was described as the end of the tail on the dog in terms of committees' approvals or disapprovals. And I think the interest that was shown was mostly interest in the process, that was going to happen.
Good, thank you.
Nothing for me?
Nothing to report.
Nothing for me, but under miscellaneous correspondence, I would let you know that I met with Jerry Wedge, who's the executive director at Emerson. I met with him just to sort of briefly discuss the plans that they have, noting you might recall that the town manager executed a long-term lease with the Emerson umbrella beyond the normal 10 years, but a 30-year lease. And within that was a set of activities that the umbrella was going to undertake in terms of fundraising and renovation. And their plan has become, I would say, more ambitious and extensive than, I won't say just renovation, because they were fairly extensive. So I wanted to chat with Mr. Wedge about that and invite him to come to the board in, I think, September, when he will have perhaps some drawings or some plans for us to look at to really explain in some detail what this initiative is.
I gather the fundraising was actually been quite successful. They were pleasantly surprised by a couple of gifts.
Well, I think they're doing well. But I don't want to talk about the specifics because I really don't know. But I think from our point of view, there's a lease, and our obligation is to ensure that what's happening is consistent with the lease, which it is, and to understand how it might be augmented. Because recall, the town owns the umbrella, and this is just a leased property. So I think that will be productive to have it come
Will
in.
the lease be modified or updated? If
I think that's what we'll discuss when we see
It
a
has a
detail.
clause in it, only because my role is the town's landlord for these buildings, so I also do the one for the 51 Walden and a few others. And it is that if it's drastically changing the footprint, number one, you guys have to be apprised of that, and Chris has to sign off on that with your
So-
permission. And then also, we have to change some of the terms of the lease, and it can be an addendum, or it could be that it negates the
lease.
current one, and we're gonna have a whole new one. So that'd be something to discuss on which way you want to go with.
Yeah, I don't want to formulate too hard an opinion, but it appears that to me as if we would amend the current lease. But that's the purpose of having Mr. Wedge come. It's a very exciting project for the town, but I think we want to do it in a straightforward manner. So that's what I
Do
have.
you all have copies of those leases? Do you have copies? Okay.
I do. Yeah, you could get 2012. I think isn't it the longer?
The 30
The
30-year.
30-year
I
lease.
think
Yeah, that's the one that I
it might
think.
have been 13 or 14. It was
Oh, okay,
right
well,
before I.
but there's a
I
number. There's a number. It's the last one that I think is important because it delineates the timetable, the amount of the fundraising, and the types of renovations that would be done. It also talks about their ability to go to the CPC to do it, and then, as you indicated, has a clauses in there for how we amend or adapt this if circumstances should change. So I think wholesome thing to look at. All right, that's the only correspondence. Well,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say I had a correspondence today that I want to share with folks.
please.
For those who know Jeffrey York, who has been the legislative aide for Corey Atkins, is leaving that position. As this is his last week
Wow.
at the State House. And he, many of you may have already spoken with Amanda Gordon over the past year. She will be taking over as the legislative aide for Corey Atkins. She will be the person that we can go through for questions, advice, and help with issues that we're dealing with.
He's the man who's been interacting with us, and more recently you, with respect to the 2015
The charter change.
charter changes that are before the legislature, right?
He generally is very good at keeping us apprised of activities that are at the State House that we may be interested in testifying on, issues that are coming up that we may want to attend. So he's been very, very good, and I really appreciate the support that he's given this board over the last several years.
Good. Now, hearing legislator, I would note that I attended a state legislator hearing on our tax fairness proposal, in which two of our fellow citizens were able to speak, and Mr. Kaufman was there, and so it was very, very nice, and that went ahead. So, item 15, town manager appointments.
Is it a motion?
Move
to confirm the town manager's appointments of Claire Gauthier of 100 Estabrook Road as full member of the Historical Commission, and Alan Whitney of 178 Heathbridge Road to the Comprehensive Sustainable Energy Committee for terms to expire May 31st, 2019.
Second?
I don't think that one needs it.
We don't need a second? No?
No.
Yes, we do.
Oh, we do?
Second.
Well done.
It's
All in
exciting.
favor?
Exciting. Aye.
Thank you, Ruth.
It's for nominations that we wouldn't need
Correct.
a second, correct? All right, then committee appointments.
Move to appoint Lise Holdorf of 449 Barrett's Mill Road to the Agricultural Committee to fill an unexpired term ending May 31st, 2018. Christina Ayotte Brennan of 164 Hayward Mill Road to the Trustees of Town Donations for a term to expire May 31st, 2019. Peter Hunter of 720 Lowell Road as the Recreation Commission representative to the Comprehensive Long Range Plan for a term to expire January 2018.
Second. Note that we have, with the special meeting that we're having on August 15th, we have 3 meetings in August. And I won't call it my intent, but my hope is perhaps that we might dispense with the August 22nd meeting. So I just want to alert people to that, and if there's objection or anything, please let me know, and I'll be talking with Kate and Ruth and Chris to make sure there's not something coming down the pike that can't be either dealt with before that or then in September. It might give us a little bit of a break. All right, well.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Good job.